Hey guys, welcome to the Student Side Hustle. So in this show, what we're trying to do is I'm trying to share stories of individuals and people who generally are doing something unique, doing something entrepreneurial, doing something that they're passionate about and trying to make it their career. That's not necessarily the thing that allows you to be on the show or qualifies you to be a guest on the show, but that's generally what we're talking about. We're talking about entrepreneurship, passion, etc. A lot of it revolves around bodybuilding and fitness because that's what I'm personally interested in. But what I want you to take away from this is just the fact that you can do whichever passion that you'd like to do, and you can make that into a career. It's a long path, but you can make it happen. And basically what I'm doing is showing you 80 plus examples of people who are doing it and who have done it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I would love if you would subscribe because we've got a lot of new episodes coming out. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.
People are constantly raising the bar.
Sacrifices need to be made.
What would you guys say are your biggest weaknesses?
You or your enemy right now?
The success of life.
Just a fucking podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Student Side Hustle. This week I'm speaking to Jesse Driftwood. So I hope a few of you, I didn't have many listeners back then, but if you go back to episode 12, the 12th episode that I ever did, it was with this guy. And basically we covered a lot of what he was doing then, which I think it's quite a unique thing, and he was sort of tackling a medium that people use, but he's basically done it better and a lot better, a lot more creative. He's just done it in a very interesting way, and he's basically continued to do that, branch out into other things, and I thought I'd have him back on to have a chat. But yeah, Jesse, what has happened since then, if you can remember, because we were talking before, like, see, it feels like it's been months, but it's been a year and a...
Brought it up, and you said the last time we talked was August, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. August 2018, you're like 2017.
Oh my god.
Blew my mind. I can't even believe how much time has passed. My daughter at that point was 2 and she's 3.5 now, and we've had another baby since then. So while a lot that we've been doing over here is the same, also everything is totally different. The family's expanding, my business has grown. It's been a pretty crazy couple 18 months.
And then when it comes to where you want to head creatively, what is your general sort of vision now? Because I know back then, I was listening to it last night to sort of refresh myself. The sort of vision was try stories out, see how they go. Where can I take this? What will it end up being? And then, because back then, I think it was sort of more of an experiment. How is it now? Are you sort of locked into stories for a long time, or what are you sort of going to do creatively?
Yeah, it's interesting. So for me, a big reason I started doing stories was because at the time I was so still flooded with my corporate work, commercial work, even wedding work, and like photos and videos that I felt like I didn't really have time to dedicate for just videos that I wanted to make, whatever that might be, whether that was a vlog or anything, I just felt like all of my time creatively was spent making things for other people. And so I was like, you know what, Instagram stories, 15 seconds, I can swallow that for now. Yeah. So Instagram stories was meant to be something to hold me over until I can find a way to monetize my art, so to speak, so that I put more time into the content that I wanted to make. But as you and maybe some people listening know, it very quickly became how I built my name. It quickly grew into a full business of working with brands, creating content for both myself, but also for them in that vertical Instagram story space. So on one hand, I do plan on staying with stories. I really enjoy the medium, actually. I find it fun creatively. But on the other hand, I'm also moving elsewhere, and that elsewhere is primarily YouTube. So YouTube was the original goal. It just at the time didn't seem feasible. And so apparently 18 months on, it's finally just now I'm like, okay, I should do this. In September of this year, I actually started going, I was making weekly uploads there, but I hadn't announced. I wasn't like, I'm making weekly, because at that point, I had a baby due any day. And so I figured maybe I shouldn't make any grandiose promises about my consistency right before I'm about to have kid number 2, newborn in the house. So kid's been around about 2 months, even the whole Christmas, holiday, whatever, end of year crunch time. But
Yeah.
come 2019, essentially the goal is weekly YouTube uploads with still a couple of Instagram stories midweek.
Yeah.
Still working with brands. I've actually hired on a manager, which has been amazing. He lives in Utah. And he's so sick. He's just the best. It's not an exclusive anything like that. It's just now my brand content and all that communication stuff. So as an example, I had a brand and things where the back and forth was a bit, it was like playing tennis. It was just we couldn't settle exactly on the concept or the idea. And at one point, I just remember being like, I don't think this is going to work out. And I was feeling kind of annoyed.
Right.
But I didn't actually have to talk to the brand. So I just got to text with my manager. And he'd be like, this is what they're saying. And I could just be like, this is stupid. I could, be a child if I wanted to. I wasn't. But I could just speak totally candidly. And then he's able to send that back, polite, translate it into a way. And so I basically now... that's one of the big benefits is I get to spend more time doing the creative process and not no time, but a little bit less time in the whole email negotiating.
Yeah. Did you find,
process.
Was that one of the bits of it that you were sort of like, I don't want to do this bit. Like, this is the bit that it's necessary, but it's like, I don't want to have to
One of the
email
I
X, Y,
think,
and Z.
and this is a problem. Most of my friends, I would say, most of the people I actually spend a good chunk of time with are self-employed. Some of them are writers, producers, all sorts of spheres. But we often joke about how doing what you love for a living is doing so much of what you don't love. I have a friend, she opened up a coffee shop many years ago. And she's like, I love coffee. I love the vibe of a coffee shop. But she, same thing, quickly found out so much of owning a coffee shop isn't owning a coffee shop. It's scheduling hours for people and dealing with suppliers and all this stuff that you realize is also a part of it. So yeah, email is part of that for me. It's one of the things I don't want to do, but I also understand it's part of
It's
part of the
sort
job.
of like the grunt work that kind of has to be done. But it's good to know that sort of you get to a point where it's like, okay, I can probably push some of this to the side. Cause it's
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, because with the whole stories thing, it was very, like, it sort of happened very fast. Like, I think I interviewed you and then, not because of me, obviously, but I think quite soon after that, it became, everywhere I looked to do with Instagram stories, I'd see your name. And
Yeah.
Would you ever be scared of sort of being tied down to that? Sort of being like the story guy?
Yeah. I have for sure. And I think for a lot of people, that's what they think of me as. And then, so one of my goals was over the past 18 months, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make these stories so good that I'll make a name not in just vertical or stories. I'm going to make a name in filmmaking or editing or something like that. And so I started kind of incorporating a lot of transitions into my work, giving it a bit more of like a style.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, a lot of people know me now for the type of transitions in my editing flow.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same, it's good and it's not good, where people are like, oh, that's what you're known for now. So you're the, this is what you are. And to an extent, yeah, I don't like being pigeonholed as just a story guy or just an editing guy. But it also doesn't really bother me. I think as humans, we just naturally try and categorize and classify things just for our own brains, kind of understand the way the world works.
Yeah. Because it's like, especially if they can't.
People would be like, oh, he's the fitness guy or something.
Yeah.
And
And it's like,
I'm so much more. Or someone might be like, oh, you're just a podcaster. Or
yeah. And I think people
and
love
it is what
to.
it is. It can bog you down, but you can also kind of flow with it.
Yeah. Do you feel as though, because I think for me, at the start I was labeled as like the scoliosis dude because that was my niche that I went quite well with on YouTube. But then it was kind of like, it's like a spine condition. And that was my thing that blew up really fast. But then I was like, I don't want to just do this. Like, and I think I probably took a different approach to you. I was sort of like, I'm just going to do way, way less of that. And because I guess with stories, you were still like, fuck, this is a cool medium. But it was like,
Yeah.
Do you think sort of in the next year or so, are you sort of trying to be like, hey, by the way, I also make dope YouTube videos? Like, is that...
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the goal. So even just this past fall, kind of putting some more work into the YouTube videos, it's actually crazy how much more reach, even though the overall actually reach of each of those individual YouTubes compared to an individual story that I put out is much smaller. It seems like it actually, each video opens up to a different audience.
Right.
So stories, as an example, I'd say 90+% of people that see them already follow me. They already know who I am. It doesn't have a lot of organic reach. Whereas the YouTube videos I was making, every single video, people are like, oh, cool, this is the first video I've seen of yours. You've got a new follower or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I actually got a lot more inquiries from brands and companies and new opportunities from those YouTube videos than I had expected, because they were so much smaller than in views than what I was used to getting. So it's interesting. I do plan on trying to push that YouTube side.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. For one, new opportunities, trying to reach out to new markets, and but also because sometimes it's fun to just put more time into a single piece of work. It's not just edit, upload same day. Sometimes I want to actually put a bit more thought, maybe write out a script, plan out the video, maybe spend a whole week making it. And
have you found it, because I guess that's what you did originally, because I remember when we talked about wedding shoots originally, like a year and a half ago, it was like the passion that you talked about those, it was like, hey, you have this story and you have this intense, like have I lost you? Nope, there we go, still there. So it's like you have this story and you have this like time frame in which you can capture it. So you have to just capture it as best you can, and then you pretty much have to tell that story. And then do you think, essentially, for you, YouTube videos are like, you can have that story, it's less pressure to capture it all of a sudden, but it's like, it's still going back to that, and it all goes back to sort of telling the story. And do you feel like that's the thing that...
So I think I've even seen that flow now in some of the YouTube videos that I've made, and I've got a couple more that I'm in the process of editing. I've actually noticed the flow of it, how much comes back to the way I used to make weddings.
Yeah.
And most people watching it wouldn't be like, this feels like a wedding video. But subconsciously, so much of what I learned in that field is influencing the flow of the videos that I make now. The way that I like to have dynamics, maybe it's fast, energetic, slow things down, let you breathe a little bit. Maybe there's an emotional part or whatever.
Yeah.
An emotional part isn't just like cheesy piano and me crying into a laptop screen or something. But
how do you go about evoking those emotions without just using sad music and all that? Because it's like, for myself as a podcaster, I have no clue. Like, the only way I could evoke emotions is by going on an angry rant or something. Like,
there's music for sure. Music is part of it. And for me, music is such a huge part of my life. So I think I'm probably just a bit more nuanced in the music that I choose, where a lot of times you might see a generic bad YouTube video that's supposed to be emotional. They might just find some random, just like search YouTube free sad music, and there's like piano sounds sad, good enough, go. But I'll spend days at a time. Even when I was doing weddings too, I'd spend a week nonstop. All I'm doing, listening to music, trying to find the exact right that I be a part of the video. So I'm just so particular about audio in general. But the pacing as well, as the way, how long you're holding a shot for, and what's going on in the shot, giving people a chance to kind of exhale from an edit, that can start to invoke certain emotions.
Yes. I feel like it's very hard for me to understand, because I've made YouTube videos, but it's like, it's me sitting in front of a camera talking. It's not, the editing is like, okay, I cut the bit that I don't want people to see. It's literally that. Like, it's not, I would never say I'm a filmmaker. Like, that is a big stretch for myself.
What's so great about YouTube in general is it really is it's not necessarily a filmmaker's platform. It's a platform for anyone who has something to share. And for me, a lot of what I have to share is filmmaking. And so I use YouTube as a platform to share my filmmaking. But for a lot of people, people share their poetry, and that's just laptop and them, and they can still evoke really interesting emotions and really
Yeah.
compelling emotions out of people. So
Yeah, because I think that there's a lot of tools to do that. Like if I, like I have this one video that I made where it was literally me talking into a really horrible like microphone, and it makes me cringe how bad all the equipment quality was trash. Like it's just so,
Right.
like you would die. Like it's bad, and it's like, and that video, but it's like the amount of response and emotional response that I got from that was, I think, just from the words that I was saying. I think it's just that
for sure.
combined with just a pure-hearted story. And
Yeah.
I think there's many ways to do that. But one thing that I would really like to touch on is when it comes to, because I've sort of been dealing with it a lot recently, is how to interact with people sort of bigger than you. Because as a creator, it's like, say, if I interact with even someone like yourself or someone big in fitness, it's like this person has more followers, they have more X, Y, or Z, X whatever, whichever metric you want to use. And then how do you go about interacting with them as a creator and sort of saying, hey, I don't just want to leech off your time, and etc. You know, like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's something that I've definitely had to deal with. This time last year, I was in, where the heck was I? Somewhere in the States. It was really cold. I got to work on Casey Neistat's holiday movie, which was at the time probably the biggest thing of my career. He's sort of the name in the vlog YouTube filmmaking world. And so even a lot of the people that were there for that were people that I'd looked up to for years. And so I'm having to learn how to interact with people. And same thing on the online sphere is, how do you go about that? And I also have people on the other end of it, people maybe unlike yourself that have gone about it the wrong way, trying to be like, hey, I need this from you. Some people saying, I'll get the occasional message that's like, I shot a video, I need you to edit it.
What
And
the?
And so it's like, well, I'm just going to delete that message.
You're
I'm
like,
sorry, but
what the?
yeah.
You're like, why should I? That's a bit much, you know.
There's
Like,
nothing there.
yeah,
So a few things. On one hand, I think there's the obvious. You need to be adding value in some way. You know, what is it that you can provide to someone? So if I were to approach someone larger than myself, there's two questions: is why am I even doing it? Am I just doing it to gain clout, or just to make my name bigger, or what? Or do I think maybe there's a story that I want to tell, a video I want to make that I think they could benefit? And then how do I bring value to them as well? And so for me, typically, if I'm reaching out to someone larger than me, they would probably be someone that isn't in my direct field, because someone who's a better video editor than me, I may not have much to offer them. And if I'm asking for their time, it may just be like, hey, can you teach me how you edit? And it's like, no, they probably can't. They probably don't have time. I larger music producers and people in that sphere, where I can at least say, here's like maybe a skill you have in the way that you produce vocals or edit music. Because I actually do have to do a lot of music chopping up for a lot of the videos that I make, to maybe take a 4-minute song and turn it into a 14-second song that has the exact right highs and lows that I need for an edit. That's every video I make has something of that. So I might approach a larger music producer and say, could we work together on a video? I have this YouTube video I want to make. I'd love to be able to collaborate in some way where I can help you with a video and you can help me learn the audio side. And so there's this kind of mutual exchange of knowledge / information in some way. But also when you go about it, you just have to make sure that you're not demanding. You've got to understand that everyone's busy and everyone's just trying their best. So if they say no, if they don't respond at all, okay. You know,
that's the
fine.
thing. Like the amount of people.
The most important is that you're like, focus on what you want to do. And don't make the excuses like, oh, you can't do it because they're not answering you, they're not doing the thing. So when people ask me, for an example, when people ask me if we can collaborate on a video, the most important thing for me is that they are already making videos. If I go to their page and I don't see anything, it's like, well, why?
What evidence do you have?
What do you mean, right? I can't just sit with you and teach you how to shoot and teach you how to edit, there's a rate for that.
Yeah.
and it sounds arrogant, but
I think it's
I've got
true.
a family, I'm running a business, and I have such limited amount of time. It's a service I would offer if the price was right, of course. But otherwise, I just actually shot a YouTube video with a guy that I've chatted online a little bit with, and same thing actually with us. So we started talking almost 2 years ago now, him and I. Talked on and off little bits. I probably haven't heard from him in over a year. And at that point, he was like, "Oh, I think I'd be interested in getting into video." And he maybe even said, like, if you ever have a way to go about it, just offer service if you can ever provide it. And it never worked out. And then more recently, he kind of let me know that since we've last spoken, the last 18 months, 2 years ago, he's really gotten into video. He's made a career of it. And a lot of it was thanks to like those first conversations that we had. And I checked out his stuff and it was really good. Yeah. And it's not that it's really good, but I thought he was making a YouTube video talking about how he actually started making Instagram stories. That's how he got into video, period, was just making video. And that was because of me. Yeah. And so now to see that he's made a business from it and he's making work for clients, I'm like, I'd love to do that video with you. I think that's a really cool story. Yeah. I'd be happy to, lend some time to sit down with you and chat and shoot some stuff because you're out there doing it. You're not saying, I'll make a YouTube video as soon as you say you'll make time. What he said was, this is a video I'm making. I'm going to talk about it. And it'd be awesome if you could also be in it. Yeah. But if I said no, we would have made it anyways. So
yeah, exactly. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, it's a very big contrast. It's like, hey, it's like when I pitch guests, it's like, if I expect everyone to say yes and I get mad when they say no, like, come on, like people's time is valuable. Like the amount of guests that I have pitched once and then I've pitched them again in like 6 months and they said yes. It's like that because what does that demonstrate? It demonstrates that I'm not just, this isn't my first podcast episode ever and I'm just like, hey, come talk on Skype with me for like half an hour. Like
exactly.
That's a big, I think that's a big difference that a lot of, I hope a lot of creators seem to respect it, because a lot of the people I interact with seem to respect that quite a lot. But then there'll be people who message me and say, hey, can you give me advice? And they won't even say, hey, love your thing. They'll just say, hey, I need advice. And I'm like,
it's just
cool. But
it's just gimme.
Yeah, I'm like, like time is effectively money. And it's like...
Yeah, none of us are entitled to anything.
Exactly.
If they say yes, that's great. It's a blessing. You can have that interaction. If they say no, and that's all you deserved in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because in reality, it's like, if I go and ask, hey, Casey Neistat, can you, or, Jordan Peterson, if I ask him and I'm like, hey, come on my podcast. Right. And he's like, kind of busy, like.
Yeah, he's like, I did 72 podcasts today alone.
Yeah, it's like, it's unreasonable. But I think there is a way where you can interact with them and make it sort of like, hey, I appreciate your work. I would love if you come on, but if not, that's fine. And I think that's a much safer way to do it. One thing that I would like to talk about though is how do you go about? Well, how has it sort of? Because back last time we talked, you had Dorothy, and now you have. Well, I know the name. Yeah, that's the name. And that is, for me, I can't even imagine. Well, I've never been a parent, obviously. I'm 20 years old, so a bit far away from me. But how is that sort of being a challenge when it comes to being a creator? Because it's like some days you'll be like, oh, I need to make a story, but then I've got to take the kid to daycare or something. I don't know what kids do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say for the better part of 18 months, I mean, really only up until probably this past July, August, I was making stories essentially daily. I did that for probably 18 months. Yeah, I'd miss a day here and there if I had to. Or if I had a shoot that just actually couldn't swing it. And now I'm not making things daily, and it's way better. I'm actually sleeping, which is, I'm spending more time with the family, which is great. But in terms of time, it's like, we all have the same amount of time. And so it comes down to priorities. And for me, right now, it's my 3 biggest priorities are like my family, my business, and my community, like the people in my life, my friends, family, the people that are close that I actually spend time with. And that's really about it. I don't really, I don't go, what day is it? I don't even know what day of the week it is. I had to look at my computer. It's Thursday. This could have been Saturday night. I have no idea, because my life doesn't really involve going out on the weekends or anything like that. And not because I don't like it, but just shooting and editing. It's something that I prioritize. So in my free time, I'd rather be making videos for two reasons. One is I love doing it, and two is it's also building my business. And so it's a twofold. So most of what I do is spend time with my family and work on my business, which just also happens to be my passion.
Did you ever feel like, because I know for me there was definitely a time where I would sacrifice those sort of aspects and the nice times of life for more but progress and just shooting podcasts out my ass. Like it's like there was a period where I don't even think the podcasts were that good, and there was obviously a lot of trade-off there. I think it benefited me at the time, but it wasn't that useful because I was just shooting them out. And it's like, have you ever felt that sort of like just trying to rush all these things out and then it affecting everything else, and it's just all these things that it's like, is the trade-off worth it?
The worth it question, I think, is maybe not the right question. I mean, I would say yes, it's worth it. I think a lot of people, when they talk about work-life balance as an example, they think that there's a right answer, that there's like an amount of work, an amount of life, and that's the right balance. But the truth is, I think most things in life is more like a pendulum, and it just swings back and forth. And I think there's a season where it's work, 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 put things out as fast as you can, but also know that that's not sustainable. Eventually you do have to swing towards rest.
Yes.
But you can't just sit and rest, or you become lazy and your business will suffer. And so then another season is going to come where it's going to be, the priorities are going to have to swing a little bit, and you're going to have to sacrifice. Maybe it's going to be sleep you're going to have to sacrifice, or social life you're going to have to sacrifice in order for a long-term gain on your life.
Yes.
But that can't be everything. So in terms of learning, I think I'd say your podcast is better for it now, for that period that you pumped them out, even if they weren't that good.
Yeah.
As long as you're also assessing the podcast. And if you can acknowledge, these aren't that good, and then you spend the time going, okay, why aren't they that good? Is it because I pumped them out, or is it because I didn't have the right questions, or is it because I didn't, or they're not long enough, they're too long, they're this and that. So I think as long as you're self-evaluating constantly, then you can also be there to say, now is a season where I slow down. Maybe I spend more time on an individual podcast, or maybe whatever. Maybe now it's I take a week off of podcasts and I read a book.
Is there anything, because I think for me, I find it hard a lot of the time. In other aspects of life, I don't find it hard, but in podcasting, I find it hard to, well, in some aspects it's not that hard, but in some aspects it is, to sort of go back and evaluate my performance or my creative output. How do you sort of go about evaluating yourself? Is there anything specific you do? And then is there anything where that becomes hard to sort of evaluate how have I been doing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So one thing that I do is, for example, every video that I make, I rewatch it hundreds of times. And not just now. I'll go back and I'll rewatch every story I've made for the past 2 years. I'll just sit down and really figure out, especially once I finished a video, even after I've uploaded it and maybe you should stop caring about what people think, I'll rewatch it. A YouTube video I put up, I'll watch it 10 times the first day that it's posted. And it's not in an anxious sort of way, more in a evaluative. I'm just kind of watching it going, when does this get boring? At what point do I lose attention? When do I want to look at my phone, or when do I not know what's going on? When if I feel like I've lost my bearings? And I still try and hold it with not too much ego.
Right.
That I can use it as an opportunity to be like, okay, next time spend less time on this topic, or next time talk less, next time talk more, less time louder music. And I just use it as this is what I'll do next time, and that's fine, but I'm still okay to put it out there. So for me, with filmmaking in particular, I don't find it all that difficult. And part of that is maybe because I'm obsessive with the craft, but I also know that I can be so obsessive that if I let it take over me too much, I won't put anything out there, and I just finish projects. So if anything, Instagram stories taught me to just like get it out there, make the next one better.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a very, it sounds like a very healthy mindset. I think it's probably a mindset that a lot of creators should sort of learn from, because it's kind of like, hey, put stuff out, but then be pretty critical and sort of evaluate it, but still be okay with it not being perfect.
Just assume you're not the best. And that's fine. What I want is, it's not even necessarily that I want every video to be the best video that I make, but if this was on a graph, I want the overall momentum of quality to be in the right direction. You know, it might be a little like this. Maybe the video I make today won't be quite as good as the one I made last month, but I sure hope it's better than the one I made last year.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's just gradual. And it's, even for myself, I look at one podcast and I'll be like, fuck, that was amazing. Best podcast ever. And then I look at another one, I'll be like, wow, that was atrocious. And it's like, and they'll be only like 10 episodes apart from each other. And it's just very, it's very, like,
for sure.
I look at my old ones now and I'm like,
rather than let that dictate how you feel about yourself, it's just better to ask the questions why. It's like, why was that one worse?
Do you ever feel
what
like,
is it about that one that wasn't as interesting? Maybe it was the guest, or maybe it's like my headspace wasn't there. Maybe I didn't realize I didn't eat all day and I was irritable.
Exactly.
Who knows what it is?
And trying to figure that out. Do you ever feel, I had a very interesting conversation yesterday, and it was actually off air, but it was basically, we touched a little bit on a lot of people in entrepreneurship or creative spaces. They like, I feel like it's very easy to get tied to having your self-worth and emotional value being tied to how well your business is going or how good you think it is currently, or all that. Do you ever think, do you personally get sort of trapped with that, or have you dealt with it in the past, or have you seen people around you sort of get trapped with that, and then how do you personally combat it, that sort of feeling of self-worth attached to growth?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, definitely I've fallen into it. I'm not going to say I haven't. And I think for me, again, it's like, it's a pendulum thing, and not because I think it's ever right to have your self-worth. It's almost like, at least for me and probably for a lot of people, there's a certain gravitational pull towards wrapping your own value as a human in with your success.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably it helps us to push forward. But again, at the cost of what, right? If it's at the cost of your own happiness and the relationships in your life, it's bad. For me, the definition of success is everything outside of my business. I think outside of my business, if it enables me to have good relationships with my family, with my friends, and I'm healthy and I eat, then I'm successful.
Yeah.
So anyways, but the point is, sometimes I see, like maybe my numbers didn't grow this much this week as much as they did last week or the week before. Or maybe in general, numbers are going down, and sometimes that feels like I'm doing something wrong, or like people don't like me as much anymore, and it's not a healthy way to view things.
Yeah.
So I actually keep bringing myself back to what my own definition of success is. And then I look around in my life and I'm like, oh, you know what? Things are really great right now. I just had a second baby. Things with my wife are better than ever, I not struggling to pay bills every month anymore. It's not always, oh, where is the next paycheck going to come from? Finally starting to pay off some of our debt. So even if it seems like one aspect of my life is maybe not always going on the up and up all the time, I think having this kind of this reference point for myself of what is success. And for me, success is being able to be healthy and happy and have good relationships with the people that matter to me, and have time to actually give to them. And then once I can kind of reevaluate that, I'm like, oh, never mind. Things are good.
Yeah, I think that's something that I hope to sort of tend more towards, because I think I'm still trapped in that sort of, how's the podcast going? How is X going?
Yes,
it's
for sure.
Yeah, and it's very. I think it's a difficult thing to get out of, but I hope one day that I can sort of release myself from it.
I mean, I'm still looking at my numbers on probably a daily basis, and I think, oh, for sure, someday I'm doing it because I'm like, do people still like me? Am I still relevant?
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous to say it out loud, and maybe it's helpful to say it out loud because you're like, wow, that is ridiculous, and I'm doing it on autopilot. I don't realize I'm doing it, letting my worth get wrapped up in all this. And then some days I'm doing it, it's just pure like, it's business.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's down. What do I do about that? How do I keep growing this? How do I keep adding more value to my audience? How do I create more content that people want to see, that enables them to create more content that people want to see? How do I, just in general, provide more value to the audience so that my business also grows, but then the people that watch it, their lives feel more full. And
yes,
yeah,
that's one thing that I would like to touch on, because again, this was sort of going back to the conversation I had yesterday. We talked, a lot of the conversation was based on, and I think you're a good person to talk to about it because you're involved in social media and you have kids and they're growing up in this world where it's like, I think it's scary, social media at this point. And how are you looking to sort of tackle this? I don't know if you have a strategy with your kids yet, or sort of with that, but and I don't know if you want to talk about that, but it's like
no, I'm happy to.
Because I think the whole crux of it is it's addictive, and everyone's in it, and then there's trade-offs to not being in it, because then it's like, oh, are you still being social if you're not on social media, or if you're not engrossing your life in it? And then afterwards, I think we'd like to touch on, as a creator, how do you sort of, does that play on your mind? Because I know, because the thing for me is people always say social media is bad, but then the people on social media are not the bad ones. It's like, it's just the mass consumption of everything on there that I guess is the painful bit about it.
Yeah, I think, so I don't have a plan as of yet, but it is something that my wife and I think about a lot. I know we're still years away. We're not buying her a phone anytime soon. That's for darn sure. At this point now, it's a different question, but it's in the same vein. We are still constantly thinking and evaluating on how much media is okay for her to consume, but also how much media is okay for me to consume and for you to consume. And, so I think step one is having a sort of self-awareness in how much I'm consuming and how addicted to am I, and how addicted is she, because that's going to be her first example of how you're supposed to interact with a phone or with social media or anything like that. And so while I don't have any answers, I know that the right first step at least is to pay attention to ourselves, because she's going to mimic that behavior.
Do you feel like that's a lot of, because obviously I don't know shit about parenting, but do you feel like that is one of the best first steps, is sort of being that good example and just saying,
I think it's I don't know any other real way to do it. I think every parent is going to screw their kid up in some way. Right, their kids are going to go off to college, their kids, my kids, and they're going to be like, my parents were not very good at this one thing, or they're too involved, they weren't involved enough, or whatever. And I think I'm just anticipating I'm not going to fill her every need. There's going to be ways in which I let her down.
Right.
But how can I lead by example so that she at least has a proper framework, a healthy framework to live within, so that one of those things, for example, is I have to know when to apologize and tell her that I was wrong, or maybe I was too strict on something. Maybe I misunderstood her, and just being able to say, I'm sorry, and not double down on my own opinions.
I think that's very, very admirable, because I think that's things that I see, even when I'm just talking to my friends about, and just a deep conversation with my friends, a personal conversation, and they talk about their issues with their parents, and it's like, a lot of the time it will be stubbornness from the parent, and the child a lot of the time feels helpless. And I think it's a very good mindset to sort of take that hey, I'm not Jesus. Like I can't tell you
Yeah,
everything, and I don't know everything. But
it's so tricky because like as an example, my daughter now, like, she sleeps in a regular bed and whatever, we put her to bed. And if she really wants to, she can climb out of her bed and she can turn her lights on and play with her toys, or she can leave her room. Last night I found her in my bed when I came upstairs. And on one hand, cute, or like, I know that every kid does this. When I was a kid, I remember trying to sneak out of my room and go into my parents' room and like play in there or whatever.
yeah,
And so on one hand, I have to be aware that it's like kids do this, it's normal, it's fine. But on the other hand, I have to know I do have to be stern. There are rules. I do have to be stubborn on this. I can't just say, yeah, it's fine, whatever, it's cute. I do have to
yeah,
like withhold a smile in my laughter and be like, you're not allowed to do this. I need you to go back to your room right now. And if you leave, there are consequences. And I think, I don't know, maybe what it'll come down to is like knowing when the right time to laugh about that with her is, and not just wait until she's 20 to be like, all those times I was being a dick, deep down I was laughing and I was okay with it.
yeah. I think well, it's such a complex thing because it's like it's not a logical problem, right? It's like this is a kid. You gotta. It's not like a maths equation. There is not one answer. There's like 6 billion, and it's like
there's not one answer at all. But kids also need some sort of structure, and they need rules. And as a parent, you need to understand that a kid's job is to essentially figure out boundaries, and they have to push the rules because that's how they learn to understand the world. Kids only learn what consequences are by breaking the rules.
Yes.
And so you have to, they're going to break the rules.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but that doesn't mean it's that the rules don't matter and that you don't need to enforce the rules.
Yeah.
You just have to break it.
Yeah, and then I think that's a very, very, that's something that I hope I keep in mind when I'm a parent in like 20 years. We'll see. But, it's like,
That's what
is
we'll
there
do the next
anyone-
podcast.
Oh yeah, when I have my kid, I'll come to you for father's advice.
Okay.
Is there anyone in particular that you sort of learnt or sort of guided you? Was it like friends and family, or was it a book, or was it a person or something that guided you when it comes to being a dad? Because I feel like the way it's portrayed in movies,
mix of all those things for sure. It's been some examples in my life, and luckily I had a great relationship with my parents. I still see them all the time. They're still together. Like that front is good. But sometimes it's the lesson you learn is what to do, and sometimes the lesson you learn is what not to do, right? And it is also information that I'm learning from books and from friends and people I look up to, seeing that it's kind of a culmination of everything and everywhere.
I feel like it's something that I won't understand for a long time, but it's something that it fascinates me because it's like, even just with relationships with I'm not a child, like a normal person. It's like, it's like that is complex. And then with children, it's more complex because they're taking guidance from you, and you have to sort of try and set as best the example you can. And then
what's always eased my mind, in parenting, that made me not stress out too much about it is, right now I don't have to worry about what it's going to be like when a 16-year-old comes home and they've crashed your car. That's not a problem when you're thinking about having kids, it's like, you don't need to deal with that problem yet.
Yeah.
Even when she was first born, and that's your first problem. You figure out how to deal with changing a diaper, and then you get through that, and then you figure out how to feed them food, and then you get through that, and it really is baby steps along the way. And even now, figuring out how to, I've had a kid for 3.5 years, and it's only now that I feel like I really have to teach her about following orders or obeying rules, to showing her what consequences are if you get out of bed or if you throw a toy at another kid or take it away. You have to understand, like, trying to teach empathy. It's still very small, but it's a heck of a lot more than it was 3 years ago, but it's still nothing compared to what it's going to be like when she crashes a car. But there's other little steps that I'll have to take to get there, and then when I get there, I'll hopefully be more ready.
Do you feel like I kind
Ready,
of think
but-
it's like the same formula, but just expanded when they get older because there's bigger consequences.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's
Yes.
best. It's probably better if they learn earlier than later that life has consequences.
Yeah.
And if you jump off something, it's gonna hurt. You know, like that sort of thing. I don't know how much more time
Yeah.
we've got. I don't want to go too long. But are we
Gotta
good for
explain.
probably? There's one more topic that I want to cover on, which is how was your mindset around transitioning towards monetization, and then how do you like deal with that? Because it's like I think a lot of creators feel guilt towards that. Was there guilt associated where you sort of like, nah, this is just business. This is how it works. Everyone big does it. And then
Yes, for sure. I have not had any feelings of guilt, but I'm also very selective on the stuff on the brands that I'll work with. And so the other thing that I'll say with that is I've yet to have any negative feedback or negative pushback towards branded content that I've put out. And I think it's because I've been so careful. And so as a creator, people might call me a social media influencer, but I think if anything, that like media influence is a byproduct of just the things that I like to make, which is primarily photography and filmmaking. When I am doing a branded piece, an actual ad for a company, I have to make sure, A, is this something that will be beneficial to my audience? So as an example, after we finish this Skype call, I'm going to go edit an ad for Skillshare. Skillshare is an ad that I'm happy to make because in general, I think a mind that keeps learning, it's the most important thing you have whole life. I think it's so important that it's not whether you're in school or not that dictates whether you should keep learning. I think you should always be pushing yourself to learn more, whether it's a new skill or a new whatever. So, a brand like that for me is an easy
because there's no
tie together.
It's not like you're trying to sell, like in fitness, people try and sell a lot of BS, and I could see why there'd be guilt associated with that. But something like Skillshare or Volvo, it's like you made beautiful content anyway. It's like
easy. The other thing is, what I try and do is when I do, for example, on Instagram story, I did one for this coffee company once, and the coffee wasn't amazing, but I was really proud of the video. And so when people see the video that I made, especially it's an Instagram story, it doesn't feel like something that they didn't sign up for. So they started following me because they wanted to see cool videos on Instagram stories. And so as long as they're still getting what they came for, it doesn't feel like they're being, hopefully, and this is what most people have said, it doesn't feel to them like they're being taken advantage of because they're still getting exactly what they asked for. If instead of my face showing up, if all of a sudden it was like an ad for Walmart or something, and it was just like some schmuck from Walmart being like, Walmart, this is how you buy toasters. Come buy a toaster. People are going to be like, you're a sellout. Because I sold out, right?
If it's just like
Walmart
a plain ad.
Together, and they let me maybe make a really cool video inside of a Walmart after hours or something, and I had fun, made an interesting video. Even if it was an ad for Walmart, the audience is 100,000 times more recipient to that. So the thing that I don't give up.
So there. So what is the thing that you don't give up?
Creative control.
I think that's a very safe way to go about it, and probably the smartest way and the most sustainable way, because if you don't have that, what do you have? Like if I made every third episode an advert, like that would be ridiculous. Like that would just be everything. There'd be no point. Like it would just diminish so many of the other things. And was there anything with monetization where you're sort of like, oh shit, how do I talk to this brand? Like, was it pretty much they'd approach you usually, or?
Well, the interesting thing is that it changes every brand. Some brands come to me and they're like, some brands have no idea what the budget is, and then the lesson you learn in that interaction is how to negotiate rates and how to walk away if it's not where it needs to be. And then sometimes it's negotiating creative, and they're saying, this is what the video needs to be, and me saying, I'm sorry if that's what you're looking for. There's probably someone else that can better serve you. And then, more recently, the lesson I learned is maybe this is a job best delegated to someone else, because I'm not always the best at it, but it's also not the thing I'm most passionate about. And so if I can hand that off to someone, then I'm happier. Then I feel more successful, even if it means I make less money. If what it means is I have more time with my family, great.
Because then it's like, effectively, say if someone introduced someone to me for the podcast and I was like, I don't want to have this person on, but I was getting paid or something, it's like, that would not create a good podcast. And I think, like, when you look at your Volvo commercials, it's like they look great. So it's like, there's a reason that I think people are okay with them, because it's like exactly what they signed up for. They're not getting that Walmart ad, like. And
for sure, it's not some schmuck from Walmart coming on your podcast and you don't even get to ask him questions. He just has everything that's on sale right now, right?
Yeah, for like 3 hours. What a good podcast.
But, so I'm also always thinking is when a brand approaches me is, if I were to do this, feels like my voice, and it feels like authentic to people watching it, and it won't feel to them like I've wasted their time. And so from a podcasting standpoint, that may be like, let's say the CEO of Walmart, I have no idea who that is, wants to be on the podcast. Before I would even agree to it, if I was you, I'd be like, okay, what are the questions that I could actually ask them that my audience would find valuable, even if they weren't paying to be on the podcast? It's like, how can I make this something important, something informative that people actually want to hear? And maybe that's asking them questions, doing a bit of research. And this is before even saying yes or no. It's let's do research. Let's learn about the rise of this CEO. Where did they come from? And then you can ask those questions. Who knows? Maybe they're a gym rat, and then you can kind of bond on fitness, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think, is it
it
sort
still
of...
gets you creative. It still lets you kind of dictate where this goes while still respecting that they're probably going to want to talk about what's on sale at Walmart.
Do you feel like a lot of being successful as a creator is sort of being picky, but not being too picky, but then sort of balancing that and being perfectionist, but not too perfectionist?
For sure. It's the friggin' pendulum. It's you do have to be selective for sure, because we all have a line. There are ads that I just won't do. If a bunch of Nazis wanted to run an ad on my page, I'd be like, I'm sorry, you guys can all go eat a bag of dicks. You can't do that, right? Obviously, my line is somewhere before Nazis. It's long before, so you know. But I don't know how we got here. But also, there have been brands that I've worked with where it's like, do I want to? Do I not want to? And I do have bills that need to be paid, and so I have to be like, yes, I'll do this, and then I just make a goal. Like, I'm going to find a way to do this that people are going to be into.
Yeah, and you just sort of... Because I feel like even I could have most... Like, say, there was a CEO who wanted to come on a while ago, and I didn't know a thing about their company, but I was kind of like, could I probably get something interesting out of this? I didn't end up having them on, but it was sort of like, could this actually be a good podcast, or will this just be shit? Like, I have a few artists who want to come on, like music people, but it's like... in the past, I found music very... I don't know what it is about it. A lot of the artists, because a lot of them will be European artists, and they don't even speak English very well. And so this is a podcast.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect there.
The most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. But then, I'd like to finish off with this. Where would be some places that you think, or just people in general, that you've learnt from, and that you've sort of taken inspiration from, or really, really enjoyed what they taught, or if there's a book that you were like, fuck, that is the best book for doing what I do out there, or...
Yeah, I think what it shocks a lot of people is that, for me, the people that I find most inspiring in my life aren't other filmmakers and photographers. They are my friends that are also entrepreneurs, but they do other things. My friend Derek, who is a music producer that I grew up with, he's one of them. Actually, my friend Tokyo, who's also now, he's a music producer. He works for like Walk Off the Earth and stuff, and is another one of those people. my friend Kevin, he's a pastor and he's also an author. It just like all these different spectrums, seeing people that live essentially a very similar life to me, which is I work for myself and I have to figure out how to organize my time, and build a sustainable life that I enjoy. And also I know that there's a time to just like put my head down and work.
Yes.
So those are the people that I take the most inspiration from. People that are a little bit ahead of me, even people that are a bit behind me that are taking a slightly different route. That's where I draw like all of my inspiration. The problem in my field is if I take too much inspiration from someone's videos, that's a quick way to start copying someone.
Yeah, we actually talked about that last time. We
Yeah.
sort of touched on there how to not steal someone's work, because I think last time, this was when I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was making podcasts, but I didn't know what they were going to be about, and I made YouTube, and I was like, okay, and I ended up, there was a point before we did our podcast where I was making stories like you, and then I was like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to be Jesse Driftwood, and it's like, that doesn't, it wasn't what I was good at, so I was like, why am I trying to be Jesse Driftwood when I'm James Walsham? Like, that's, and it was just, I was like, wow, such amazing content, but then I was like,
I think
create it.
Well, that's why I think it's fine to emulate someone else's art for a time, because it can help you to grow. As long as you don't assume it's like that's your thing. And if this cool video that you made, you're so smart. If you're not like, yeah, I'm the best, and try and take all credit. I still think it's fine, but you just have to be self-aware. There's a time where you have to go and do your own thing, but also just searching for inspiration in other fields. So, maybe instead of like maybe reading autobiographies from people that you would love to interview on a podcast and something like that, or reading biographies or listening to interviews that aren't podcasts or whatever. Feel it's like a similar thing, but it's different, but you can still find areas of inspiration from.
I think it's sort of the tightrope. Again, it's the pendulum. It's kind of like, you want to take a little, but don't take too much, and don't copy.
Yes, for sure. And then how do you make it your own?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's something that it took me a long time to figure out, and I'm still obviously figuring it out. But it took me a long time to sort of figure out, what is this going to be? Like, what is the point of this? And then all that.
Yeah, there's still times where I'll like make a video and at the end, or like maybe I'll make a joke or I'll do a certain move in a video and I think I made it up. And then I'm like, oh, crap, I totally realize that's like someone else's video or someone else's style. I didn't even realize I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's always like trying to be self-aware as possible.
And then is there any, for instance, this is something that I always like to ask, is there any books that have just influenced you a lot? Because I think books are amazing. And is there anything that you've just loved and it's just completely changed the world?
One of the first books for me that I found really helpful, which is like, it's a bit of a cliche and some people don't love it, but a lot of people I know have learned so much from it. It's like The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Yes.
Right. Which is just like, he's actually most known for writing, was it Legend of Bagger Vance, that golf book that became a movie. But a lot of it is about him becoming an author and how to just recognize the difference between like an amateur and a professional as like someone who actually does it. So the amateur might sit and wait for inspiration to write their book, make their video, interview someone. But the professional is like, no, this is what I do. And so I might not be inspired right now, but that doesn't mean I don't get to do it. I still have to show up and do the work. And maybe you'll find inspiration on the way, and great. And maybe you won't, and that doesn't matter. That's not what dictates whether or not you're going to do what you set out to do today. And so that book was like the first book that I was like, oh my goodness. Because I was so often stuck in the trap, like, I don't know what I'm going to make. I don't know what videos I want to make. I don't have a good idea yet. And then when it was like, so what? Go make a video. Sometimes I would start shooting, and that's when I figured out, oh, this is what I'm making. Here's the direction I want to go. Sometimes I'd shoot a video. I'm like, wasn't that good, but I learned some new technique, or I learned something. And as long as I learned something in the process, this probably would be my go-to for people that are trying to make that transition from amateur or just an artist into actual professional, making a living at it, turning it into a career.
That's a book that I would definitely like to read at some point, because I usually just use Audible. Like, I just live on Audible.
Yeah, that's right.
Eat, sleep, and breathe Audible. But I should probably learn to read properly. But put more time. I can read, but can't read.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I read a full book. I've just listened to like a billion.
It's interesting. I love podcasts, and I've never really gotten all that deep into audiobooks.
They are good, but it's like it's hard to focus because it's like with podcasts I can talk like this and like that and like that, but with this it's like John went to the park, and it's like it's just like that, and it's like it's if you don't focus on audio things, then it's probably a bad idea. And I find I had to be in a really specific mood to be able to consume it, and there's not many things I can do. It's like walking and listening is the only thing I can really do. But it's like if you're doing anything else, you'll lose track.
Yeah,
especially
I like
if they're hard books.
When I go for runs and stuff, I find podcasts are great. Like, even for me, usually better than music, because I can kind of like zone into it for a long period of time, and I'm not like, what's the next thing I want to listen to?
Yeah,
like, oh, could be good for that. But I've actually been trying to get into a lot more fiction lately.
Oh,
have
just you read Ready Player One is very good. I liked that one quite a lot.
I haven't. I just watched the movie, so I feel like I need some time to get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was finding I would try and read more nonfiction like stuff before bed, but then my brain would just go into like thinking mode.
Yeah.
And I think what I need to do is just like, and this is what I've been trying, is read some sort of fiction, lose myself, don't think about business, don't think about work, get lost in some fantasy world or whatever, go to bed, wake up, then go back to work.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's quite a good? Because I've heard a lot of people doing that, but I've never done it myself. Like, I've always just gone, finish working at 11, go to bed at 11:05. Like,
well, my thing is I've never really been very good at falling asleep, and so I'm easily, as soon as I start thinking about work things, it'll like consume me, and I'll just like toss and turn trying to figure out the best thing to do. So this is like, it's kind of like watching a movie or something before bed, but better for you.
Yeah. I can definitely see the benefits. And I think my thing is there's a lot of fiction books where I'm like, oh, I don't care. Like, it's hard to care about Harry Potter and his stone or whatever. and it's like, it's hard to sort of care, but I think
totally.
It's an interesting, I think audiobooks I would definitely, especially when they're like productivity ones, highly recommend. I could live in those forever. Because it feels like
I did actually listen to a couple productivity audiobooks on my Audible. One had a blue cover, and I think the word habit was in.
Ego is the Enemy? No. That's my favorite book ever. It's amazing.
Ego
Absolutely
is the
amazing.
Enemy?
Yeah, by Ryan Holiday. And
right,
the Perennial Seller. I think you'd love both of those. But if you're gonna read one, I'd recommend for you the Perennial Seller. And anyone listening, it's like that book is amazing. But Ego is the Enemy is phenomenal too. Like, these books are like my Bibles, honestly. They are just
definitely gonna look them both up.
Phenomenal. But where can people find you? Where can people find everything Jesse Driftwood?
For sure, I'm basically everywhere on the internet under Jesse Driftwood. If you can't find me there, put a 1 on the end. Instagram, Jesse Driftwood, Jesse. There's no I in my name. A lot of people think there is. Jesse Driftwood. Same on YouTube, Jesse Driftwood, all one word. Twitter, it's Jesse Driftwood 1. I love Twitter. Big fan of Twitter. If you actually wanted to like chat and interact with me, Twitter is the best place to do it, because my Instagram DMs are flooded. So it's not a very sustainable way for me to like meet new people or anything. But
thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Student Side Hustle. I would appreciate so much if you would leave a review if you'd like to hear more of what I'm saying. Then I would love if you would follow me on Instagram or check out my other social media, all linked in the show notes. And again, I would just like to say thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful evening and study hard.